According to Statistics Canada, there are more and more Canadians today who are choosing no religion when asked what their religious affiliation is than ever before.
So I believe in Jesus. It helps if you look like him.
I'm agnostic.
Christianity.
I guess I would consider myself spiritual.
Yeah, I believe. I believe.
I am Muslim.
I'm neither a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim. I'm all three and none.
I don't really believe that much in God.
I'm a Christian.
I'm an atheist.
I was Mormon in the family.
And are you still Mormon?
No, I got out of that.
Do you believe in God?
Do I believe in God? Not really.
This secular phenomenon has been especially prevalent among young Canadians. In less than a generation, there has been a major shift in how the youth of this country view religion and its importance. The traditional prayer before meals is beginning to diminish. Church, synagogue, and temple attendance is down. And more Canadians are choosing to follow their own personal beliefs and embrace a new kind of spirituality that has very little to do with the old, established, traditional religious values of the past. For thousands of years, religions of the world have played a prominent role in contributing to societies and one's identity. Whether as a Catholic, a Muslim, a Hindu, or a Jew, religion has been part of people's lives and has defined people's lives because of its heavy social influence and rich history. But today, that is beginning to change. Over the past 50 years, there has been a significant shift in how religion defines young people in Canada.
My transition was relatively painless. It was very gradual. I don't think there was ever a point where I was kind of like, oh, I'm an atheist now. I'm Ben, I'm 22, and I'm an atheist. It was called Mohawk Christian Fellowship, and I discovered it one day. I was kind of bored, and I'd heard about it, so I went down and checked it out, and I just started going every week. My faith just basically became more and more moderate until I started thinking about, like, why do I even have faith if it's just so moderate that it doesn't mean anything, or that I can't rationalize anything with it anymore, and I'm just using my own reasoning anyways. So it was just kind of like a downward slope.
Across the country, thousands of youths are coming to terms with the fact that they simply don't believe in the same beliefs and ideas as their parents and grandparents once did. And at churches and religious institutions across the country, religious leaders are beginning to notice.
Jews fade out of organized religious life in their teens when they go off to college, and often don't return until they have kids. That's been standard for generations. Specifically, again, in Jewish life, people got bored in the last generation. They found it boring. They found it irrelevant to their lives, and so, given the choice, they decided not to show up.
It's been my experience in most Catholic churches that the bulk of the people coming to masses on a regular basis would certainly be retired or nearing retirement. They're, older, gray hair, that kind of crowd.
We've become a culture of people that desperately need to be entertained. Entertainment has become almost like the new Sunday worship, because entertainment is wonderful. People love to laugh, people love to be preoccupied and think about something else, or be whisked off into another world or other people's experiences, where for a little while they can escape their own and escape maybe their own hardships and sufferings. And there was a time when that's what church did for people. But now people are realizing that They can get up in the morning, turn on their 52-inch flat-screen plasma TV, pop in a Blu-ray disc, and have a similar experience of being taken away. And that is replacing what at one time was people's need for faith. I was shocked when I read on StatsCan how children aged 15 to 20, I think the number was 45%, said they had never attended a religious service in their life, that they had no concept of going to a religious service.
I think there's maybe two fundamental things that are happening in our society that account for this demographic shift, and I think that they are, roughly speaking, diversity and education. So as young people are immersed in an increasingly diverse Canadian society, and I'm talking about ethnic diversity, cultural, religious diversity, all sorts of diversity, I think they're seeing that the assumptions and the kinds of traditions in which they were possibly raised, that there are lots of people, in fact, who have vastly, wildly different ideas of metaphysical truths, of right from wrong, in some cases, of what is meaningful in their life. And I think when they're coming up against that, they're forced to realize that maybe their own upbringing wasn't the gospel truth. Maybe there were elements of their own, in this case, religious upbringing, that in fact might not be the truth, the reality of the way the world works.
I think our generation is the most educated and therefore the least likely to rely on religion. I don't think one could be religious and be perfectly ethical. I think somewhere or another every religion poses barriers to being a truly ethical person. For instance, the Catholic stance on condom usage. AIDS is bad, but condoms is worse. I know a lot of people, especially in MASH, became atheist when they came to university or somewhat later in their intellectual development. I was an atheist from a very early age. There seems to be a trend that the more a person is happy and they experience a lot of well-being, ample food, ample education, the less likely they are to be religious.
I grew up as a Mormon, and when I was around 15, 16, my beliefs started to shift. By the time I was 18, I was completely more of an agnostic, but still not really sure of what I believed in, but I just knew I didn't believe in what the Mormons believe in. Definitely a determining factor which made me strongly question the church was something that happened to me when I was 16. I had secretly been dating another guy from school, and we'd kept it secret from our parents, and actually pretty much no one knew about it. And the summer that I turned 16, he developed a heart condition which he died from in September, and he died on a Sunday, and I wasn't at church that morning. I was up late the night before because of him being in the hospital and everything, and so I woke up to find out that he had died early that morning. And I was in a state of shock, so I didn't know what to do. So I went to church and I told the bishop what had happened. I said this guy was my boyfriend, I loved him, he died. And one of the only things he had to say was talk about what I had to do to repent, that the fact that I had dated another boy. And I actually I stopped going to church from that day on.
I think they're turning away because what they've done is and I've talked to people about this, a lot of people, and people tend to need a scapegoat for their bad experiences in life. I teach people how to hear God's voice. I teach people how to pray for people and heal the sick, just like Jesus did. Young people are tomorrow. Young people are the future. And the thing is young people are searching, they're hungry, they're dissatisfied with what they have, and God can penetrate their environment because of that. They want to experience something. And so they get deceived and they run down this path over here. It's called spirituality, when it's not at all. It's limited, it's restricted, and there's something behind that that's going to cause you to turn inward. When I look at people who don't have Jesus, there's a compassion in me that wells up. And it's not my compassion, it's Jesus's compassion, okay? And I look at them and I say, oh, if you only knew what you were missing.
Well, the church likes to teach that you're missing something and, you know, God or Jesus can make you complete or something like that, but I don't think that's true. I think, like, I was always taught that you couldn't be happy if you didn't believe, but I don't think happiness really matters. What does it, like, if you're happy about something, it doesn't make it any more real than if you're not happy about it. So religious people, I think they can be happier, but drunk people are also happier than sober people, so it doesn't really explain much. I think people lose faith because they find better ways to understand the world. I'd hope that's why they lose faith. Maybe it makes them happier or gives them more freedom, but for me it's because understanding the world without faith is a lot easier.
When people talk about doing things in the name of God, like many times people have killed in the name of God and started wars over the name of their God. Anything that's driven by like search for power and like greed, like how could that be in the name of this God that they're talking of, and how can they claim to know God and teach God? For instance, the Mormon Church, you weren't allowed to join it if you were black, and that actually wasn't changed until quite recently. How could something so divine be so hateful?
I think militant atheism is a term that's applied far too readily. After all, militant Muslims blow up buses in Israel. Militant Christians kill abortion doctors in the United States. Militant Buddhists fly planes into American aircraft carriers in World War II while screaming kamikaze. Militant atheists write books.
In 2004, over 50% of Canadians aged 15 to 29 described themselves as having no religious affiliation or do not attend religious services on a regular basis. Young, secular Canadians are beginning to have a major impact on Canadian society. With the exception of Roman Catholics, Canadians who describe themselves as non-religious make up the largest religious group in the country, more than Anglicans, Muslims, Protestants, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, and Buddhists combined.
Being a lunatic for Jesus, that's a good thing. It will always be a good thing.
I'm definitely a lot happier now that I'm not Mormon.
I think that religion prevents people from seeing what is truly good.
I think happiness is possible, but complete happiness, I don't know if we can find without God.
What these statistics mean for the future of Canada is debatable, but one thing is for sure. Canada, for better or worse, is becoming a more secularized country.